Welcome, everyone. I'm Dr. Bill, and
I'm Professor Gene.
yeah, and I bet you can guess where we are. We are at SupplySide West in Las
SupplySide
Vegas,
West.
Nevada. And it's Thursday, the 31st, so it's been an
Happy
awesome...
Halloween.
Happy Halloween, yeah. No, and again, what we have in store for you today on the show is no tricks, all treats,
That's right.
right? And we're going to have a series of industry guests come on with us today. And leaders in the industry have been around a long time. And we're going to get some perspectives from them in terms of what did they see that was really cool at the show this year. And then also what's the hottest thing they got going on in their company.
That's right. It should be.
I'm really curious to see what that's going to look like. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's going to be an awesome interview to find out what they have to say. Always interesting stuff when you talk to people like we're interviewing today.
Yeah. So anyway, we have a great show here, so stay tuned for that. We're going to jump into it with each person here, and
I think that's it.
I think that's it.
Let's move forward.
Let's get started. We have a special guest with us, David Brown, VP of Business Development at Brightseed. So
tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, happy to. I lead business development, so partnerships for Brightseed, which is a biotechnology company that's leveraging AI, to look at all the interesting bioactives that are in the plant suite every day. And so I look after all of our partnerships who are using that platform to help do research and development for new ingredients.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So there's a couple things we want to know.
But before we get to that, though, I got to tell you, what they're doing is so freaking cool, man.
Yeah.
Because when they set up, as you know, Gene, I'm a PhD natural products chemist, right? It's my background. So I went to go visit their place in San Francisco, and I found out that my research advisor at UC Santa Cruz helped them set up their lab there in 2017.
Okay.
Yeah.
Small world.
Anyway.
Okay. So here's the question.
Yeah.
So here at SupplySide West, what have you seen that you thought was interesting, and what is happening at Brightseed that you think is pretty cool?
Yeah.
Let's start with the first question.
Okay. First question. I'm going to shout out my friends at Bodalise. If anybody had a chance to go by their booth and learn about their biomimetic farming platform, you'd be blown away. And I personally got to visit that plant in Belgium and see the little bioreactors and how they're able to.
I've heard about it. It's really cool.
It's beautiful. A really cool platform.
Yeah.
And they're able to grow roots in a variety of different ways to stress the plant, so they can actually optimize for bioactive compounds.
Which is a highly sustainable process.
Cool.
It's really cool. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So I would highly suggest if anybody hadn't seen their booth to look them up.
And if you're listening to the podcast, you can probably check them out online, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Bodalise is the company. So Botalys.
So what do you got going on? What do you got going on at Brightseed that you think is pretty cool?
Well, I should start off by saying that we got a really amazing piece of information yesterday. We were named one of Time Magazine's top 200 inventions for 2024.
Wow, congratulations,
awesome.
man.
Congratulations.
That's cool.
You Brightseed and Bill have something in common. Bill just got recognized.
Today, for top 100 innovators and entrepreneurs. So thank you to everybody that supported me in my long career in this journey. It's kind of cool to get that recognition and stuff.
Yeah.
But
Congratulations.
So
thanks, man.
That is very cool.
That's very cool. And taking on that a little bit further, what's next for Brightseed then? What are you guys looking at doing? Man?
Yeah, good question. So people that know us right now, we're an ingredient platform, and so we do have an ingredient on the market today called BioGut Fiber. It's a upcycled hemp hull fiber that has 2 bioactives in that's good for gut strength. So that product's on the market. It's being formulated. It's currently being sold through with our partner Manitoba Harvest at every single Whole Foods.
Yeah.
Nice.
And it's one of the fastest growing fiber SKUs for Whole Foods. So it's been a really nice kind of launch for that. We have some other ingredients in the pipeline that are in clinical trials currently. So those will be coming out early 25. And then what I look after is our platform, our data platform business. So companies that are using the Forager technology for their R&D. And so we are rapidly expanding that and actually productizing it as we speak. and moving into all sorts of different, different food,
That's
egg,
really
cool.
supplements, the whole
Yeah, I
thing.
saw you guys are really branching out there, which is awesome.
Yeah.
You really do have some cool stuff going on at Brightseed.
Can't complain. It's cutting edge, right? And everybody asks like, what's AI doing? Like, well, AI is helping us find new ingredients in plants, and that's pretty cool.
That is awesomely cool.
And I know, like, old school for me, as a natural products chemist, was at the bench doing extractions and trying to identify new actives, solve their chemical structures, and it always a challenge. So I was always impressed with the Forager platform when we saw it. It's cool technology. So guys, if you're interested in upgaming your R&D, you definitely want to go talk to Brightseed about that. I highly recommend that. Yeah. So cool.
Thanks, David. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Dave, thanks
having
for
me.
coming, checking in with us here, man.
Thanks,
All right.
guys.
All right.
Yeah.
So we have a friend of mine. This is Dr. Jacqueline Jacques. Now, she's done so many things in the industry, but today I'm very pleased to have her here as a representative of the Scientific Advisory Board for Nutraland USA. Why don't you tell the listeners just a bit about yourself?
Well, thank you. I think that's probably the most important thing they need to know is that I'm on the Scientific Advisory Board for Nutraland USA. But I guess probably as an introduction, I've been in the natural products industry for 25 years.
Yeah.
Before that, I was a practicing doctor of naturopathic medicine.
Nice.
I've held a lot of roles. I've had entrepreneurial roles with my own company. I've been a consultant. I've been in major companies like Thorne. These days, I am acting as a scientific advisor, a strategic advisor, and really helping to support companies with novel ingredients and novel technologies. It's the biggest part of what I do.
Yeah.
Cool. That's very awesome.
Why don't you ask her a question?
So Jacqueline, for you, what's the on this year's show? You've been in a long time like us. So what was the coolest thing you saw at the show this year?
Oh my gosh. I have to limit that to one thing.
Okay, you can tell us more than one. It's okay, no problem.
So I kind of just told you that a lot of my focus is with novel ingredients and technologies. So I've spent a lot of my time on the show floor really trying to seek out what's new and what's interesting. I think as a general exciting thing for me, the amount of innovation that's come back to our industry, I think it's been blossoming since COVID, but it's so present on the show floor here right now.
Yeah.
Like the number of innovators just doing things in bioactives and everything from, new ingredients from plants to new ingredients from fermentation. It's just feels very abundant and it feels very hopeful for the future. I think new technology is what drives the hope for the future. So it gets me really excited. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I think it's the same perspective for me as well. Yeah. There's a lot more focus in doing research, especially in the microbiome space. It's really cool.
Cool. And so, Jacqueline, what do you think are the cool things that are happening at Nutraland USA?
Oh my gosh, there are so many cool things. I mean, that's why I love working with Nutraland. It's just the innovation in plant-based and botanical-based ingredients is really exciting for me. I'm excited about black ginger. I'm excited about spermidine. I actually, for the first time again, I'm excited about melatonin because I think phytomelatonin is a genuine, unique opportunity in the space. It's actually been funny. I've had a couple of discussions in the last couple of days that people, sleep is a topic, right? And I've had a couple of discussions in the last couple of days where phytomelatonin had come up, and I actually had at least one very smart person say to me, well, they can't do that. They can't get melatonin from plants. And I said, well, yeah, they can, and it's actually really cool.
I mean, it's not like all plants contain melatonin. Oh, wait.
No,
they do.
Yeah.
It's part of their light-dark cycles.
You can actually get melatonin from plants. Like, that they were trying to actually convince me that wasn't a viable thing to
actually,
do.
in mushrooms, I've seen too. I've seen a review article talk about the presence of melatonin. It's in many different plants, mushrooms. There's actually a certain genus species that has a huge amount in there.
Yeah, so there's mushrooms that make GABA, and maybe people don't want to believe that we're that similar to plants.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what? It's funny you say that because I just saw something about science that it showed the structure of hemoglobin and the structure of chlorophyll.
Chlorophyll,
Do you know
right?
they're almost identical?
I do know
And
that.
and then it's iron for hemoglobin, that's what makes our blood red. And then it's funny you should say that. But then it's what is it,
Copper.
For chlorophyll. Yeah.
It's copper.
So two different metals and a couple little changes in the chemical, but generally the same structure. I think that's fascinating.
Yeah. No,
So-
it is.
So what kind of science is going on? What kind of research is going on at Nutraland?
Well, I think the sleep study is probably, since we're talking about melatonin,
Yeah.
a sleep study, I think is the first major study comparing phytomelatonin to, biosimilar synthetic melatonin.
Right.
For me, the most exciting findings out of that are, first of all, just showing that at such a beautiful low dose, 1 and 3 milligrams, outperformed a whole 10 milligram dose of synthetic melatonin for sleep.
That's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. Yeah. It's, I think that is research that needs further sort of extrapolating on.
It does.
But
But it's very cool. I love that. I love the fact that, and you know what? It makes some sense because when you think about a plant extract, it's not just one thing. It's not just the melatonin in there. There's other compounds there. You're going to get some kind of an entourage effect.
Yes.
So it makes some sense.
Yeah. No, and this is, again, further space for exploration. But I think when people ask me about why do I like phytomelatonin, what is special about it, that's part of what I point out, is that it's not just this sort of single synthetic molecule, but because plants have a whole metabolism along that pathway, you're going to get some of these closely related molecules, which I think the future will show actually have bioactivity of their own that's contributing to that function. So, and I believe my brain is a little frazzled from this show. But
I don't blame you. I think all of our brains are frazzled from
the
this
other
show.
sort of part of the significant finding was really just that the benefits were particularly notable in people with a diagnosed sleep disorder.
I know, that was awesome.
That's really great. I mean, sleep is it's a critical function for health, right? And the reason it continues to be an important topic, not just in our industry, but across healthcare in general, is that so many people have dysfunctional sleep. So the more tools, the better. The more that we can show that those tools work the best in the people who need them the most, the better.
Sure. Now, I know so I know that there's some research going on with your fellow Scientific Advisory Board member, Tim Ziegenfuss from the Center for Applied Health Sciences. I know there's a study on black ginger, and I know that there's a study on, I think it's Miracell.
And another phytomelatonin study, right? In the works?
Yes, and that's with somebody else, but
Okay.
The ones with Tim.
You said with Tim.
Yeah.
There's Miracell. Yes.
So, do you know a little bit about those? Can you mention what those are a little bit about?
I'm really excited about black ginger. I'm really excited about black ginger. I think that's just
me too.
This is an ingredient that if it's not already on their roadmap, it should be. It's not ginger actually, but we have some compounds in this plant that we know are really important for some exciting areas of health. They're important for sexual function. They're important for metabolic health. They're showing promise in weight management for people. So if I'm correct, I think this is a pilot study that is looking at kind of a range of the things that I just mentioned, but maybe with a little bit more of a focus on the metabolic health coming out of Tim's lab.
Yeah, so that'll be cool to see where that goes.
There's quality of life, sexual health markers as well.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
I think that. Remember, I worked with you guys on the black ginger as well.
Yeah, we involved Bill on a project helping us on some
yeah. So I agree. I think it's a cool ingredient.
I'm actually waiting to get I haven't gotten samples of this product yet. I feel like I need to.
I'm ready to try to.
I feel like I want to.
I can give you samples now. We have finished samples.
Okay. This is on the list of products that I personally want to add to my regimen.
So then there's the other one with Tim on the Miracell rice germ polyamines, spermidine.
Yes, spermidine.
And I think that's pretty cool because one of the things that we know with spermidine is that it's good for promoting and stimulating autophagy.
Yes.
So on this particular study, what I think is cool is that it's kind of dose finding. It's looking at different doses and what's the one that really moves the markers. So I think that's a cool one.
Just to say something about that, that actually is something we need a lot more of in natural products. I think there's been a tendency, at least in the past, for studies to just be based on the most common dose that's present on the shelf, rather than going through this step of doing dose finding studies. So I think that's exciting. I think spermidine is an exciting compound just by itself, because as we are looking at true things that have an impact on health span, I believe this is one of our more promising
I couldn't agree more.
What we need to look at in health span. So
you also mentioned the our somato phytomelatonin study that's coming up.
Yeah.
That's not with Tim. That's with another group.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I thought
No, that's okay. It's reputable.
Yep.
Is the group doing that one? And I think that's a pretty cool study.
Yeah, and I think that was also a low dose. I think that's a 2 milligram.
2 milligram dose.
2 milligram study, and incorporating data from an Oura ring. So
isn't that cool? Using the Oura ring and tracking all of these different parameters and seeing how it affects various aspects.
Sleep quality. I think it's important for people to remember that sleep isn't just about feeling rested when you wake up in the morning, right? Sleep is actually, it's a marker of health, right? If we are not sleeping, and particularly if we're not getting quality sleep, that doesn't just affect whether you're tired. It affects your metabolic health. It affects really the true health and function of your brain. Mood. So there's so much that can come out of that. And I love now that we have this technology that we can integrate into scientific studies. It's so much better to be able to collect data this way than the old method of just sending people to a sleep center. I mean, it's a very unnatural environment if people aren't aware of what that looks like being in a sleep center. So if we really want to get real data, having people in their own sleep environment while we're collecting that sleep quality data.
Absolutely. I mean,
so much more
years ago,
much more sense.
I had a sleep study for sleep apnea years ago.
Yeah, and it's terrible, right?
And you sit there and they're like, okay, let me hook you all up with all these wires and all this stuff. Now lay down and relax.
And try to go to sleep.
Sure.
Yeah. And then we assume that data is representative of normal sleep for you, which...
How could it be?
No.
It
doesn't.
not.
So that's why I think this study will be so cool. Well, that's great.
Too.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much for
thank you guys for letting me be
sharing
here.
that stuff. That's great.
Thanks for joining, and it's a pleasure to have you. And
always a pleasure, Dean. Thank you. This is great.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Okay, now we have Jeff Chen, the famous Jeff Chen.
Oh, the famous.
You're really famous now. You know that you show up all over LinkedIn because singing everywhere, joining live bands.
Goodness.
Can you believe this guy?
No, I was thrilled when I saw that, and very excited, given that we're really do some karaoke tonight.
We're got some karaoke going.
Yeah, that's right. Don't forget, guys. Gene and I are hosting a karaoke event tonight. Jeff's coming, so stay tuned for photos and a little video on that one later. Yeah.
Thank you guys for organizing that. Really exciting.
Yeah.
So Jeff is co-founder and CEO, right? Mm-hmm. I got that right, for Radical Science. And Jeff, you can introduce yourself, and then we got some questions for you. Right.
Sure. My background's always been in healthcare, but specifically I was very interested in the business of healthcare. So I trained in these physician executive programs. So I went to UCLA, got my medical degree, got my MBA at the same time, and kind of just realized all the shortcomings of the current healthcare system. So practicing as a doctor in it, managing the healthcare system didn't seem very interesting to me. In the process of going to med school at UCLA, I'm in West LA, where it's kind of the prime wellness movement, learning about all these natural products they never taught us about in med school. So I started a research center at UCLA focused on botanicals, and we were running clinical trials on botanicals.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And I really saw my mission to generate evidence on these therapies that were already democratized and didn't need a doctor, didn't need insurance reimbursement.
Right.
Kind of came face to face with some of the downsides of the traditional trial approach. And that's when I decided to shift my career yet again away from academia into becoming more a tech entrepreneur. And it's kind of what led me to here today.
Cool.
Nice. Awesome. So, all right, question for you. You've been here at Expo SupplySide for a few days. And since you've been here, what would you say, from your perspective, was kind of one of the coolest things that you saw while you were here?
rather than talking about any specific cool thing, certainly a trend that I both saw
Yeah, sure.
That's
on the
cool,
floor as well as in the discussions we're having with people is this functional food, this functional beverage, movement. I think is gaining momentum.
Yeah.
And one thing that continues to come up in conversation with everyone is like, what do the regulations look like, and how might they evolve? And I think there needs to be a concerted industry effort to, rather than have the FDA one day snap to attention and be like, actually, guys, we've been letting you guys do this for a few years, but we're just going to kibosh it now.
Right.
No more dietary ingredients and food products. And if you call yourself with a nutrition facts panel, you cannot make structure function claims. And if you try to disguise a food with a supplement facts panel, we're still going to pull that off the shelf. Rather than just wait and let them do that, could there be a framework that we as an industry come together with and proactively present that as the path forward? So rather than having everything kind of exist in this gray area where people are taking
I agree.
food and beverage, throwing a supplement facts panel, and blah, 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 blah.
Well,
So,
yeah, you're right. That's I think that's I've always been of the philosophy of being very proactive, and I know we're all passionate about this industry. So if you're not proactive, stuff gets done.
Listen,
to you,
this
you got to do it, man.
this is the same kind of thing that happened back in 1994
Yeah.
when we said, okay, there's too much
such a
about
good point.
the supplement business that's in the gray area.
Yeah.
We have to define dietary ingredients. We have to define the parameters of dietary supplements. And that's why so many people in the industry work together to create the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act, and working it with Congress and doing all the stuff and getting all the consumer support. It finally happened. And I think what you're talking about is we need to do the same thing. We need to do it again. We need to do it in a way that addresses this very issue, because we can't wait. Because at the time, back then, similar thing happened. They were trying to limit and remove and stop.
Wow.
So good point, Jeff.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's a great call out, man. And I hadn't really thought about that because I kind of think of the functional beverages as the functional foods, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people have been putting botanicals and other things, but you're right. There's more and more of that going on, especially in the microbiome space. There's a lot of biotics that are going in there, right? And actually, I have a little bit of concern in that area too, because if familiar, you've got genus species of different strains, and then you have a designation for a particular strain. But in terms of supplement fact label reporting, it's genus species, and then how is it really different from a strain standpoint? From a regulatory point of view, there's no way to manage that. I've always been challenged with that, but the science never matches regulations anyway. But right? But for sure, the science is different. We've seen this. I've seen this in numerous strains where a different designation, whatever, it's a different genetic profile, right? But anyway, so that leads me into the next question for you.
Yes.
Which is, what's the coolest thing you got going on at Radical right now?
Or at least a cool thing.
A cool thing we got at Radical.
I'm sure you got more than one.
Yeah. So what? Well, I mean,
choose one.
I'll give you an example. Here's a cool thing that's happening, and it's the reason I'm able to be here at SupplySide and not be freaking out, because we have an amazing team with us, and we've got an amazing platform. So I'll give you an example. In the last 60 days, we have launched 12 double-blind randomized placebo-controlled trials.
Wow.
Launched recruitment for, and those trials have collectively involved 10,000 Americans. And before Christmas, every single participant will have been recruited, screened, consented, enrolled, randomized, shipped product, and have gone through 6 weeks of product usage and completed their trial and been blinded at the end.
Wow.
So
that's impressive.
That's very impressive.
That's with our startup team of a couple dozen folks. And so that our bandwidth has never been tested at that limit, and it's amazing to see our team and our platform functioning.
Yeah, and I believe Nutraland USA, for whom I'm Chief Scientific Officer, is one of those trials.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. So that's really exciting. And the other really exciting thing that in line with that is only this year have we started rolling out a deeper layer of data analysis for our clients that really combines the best of biostatistics as well as the best of AI, and in particular machine learning. So machine learning is really good at finding hidden patterns, but it can be wrong. It's also good at finding things that may not actually exist. So what we are able to have been doing is we've been applying machine learning to our data sets over time to identify the features that most consistently seem to be important predictors of whether an individual is or is not going to respond to supplements. Those
That's
generate
awesome.
those generate the hypotheses that
Right.
then we can drill down with biostatistics, looking at subpopulations and rerunning our statistical models to see if there is statistical significance when you
I
filter
love that.
subpopulations. So
Yeah.
Totally
it's
cool.
a really amazing marriage between the two. And what we're finding is fascinating things that, yes, there's the usual suspects. Gender and age seem to, more often than not, play roles in if a product is going to outperform placebo in these subpopulations. But we're finding other things. Caffeine usage is a predictor. BMI is a predictor. Diet, servings of vegetables a day is a predictor.
That makes a total sense.
And what's interesting is we're having these conversations now with the marketing teams that are clients who are like, wow, great, the scientists have what they need. They've got their data for future trials and for claims. But you've also just helped us now understand who should we be spending our marketing dollars on? Because if I spend my marketing dollars on someone who's more likely to biologically benefit, they're going to repeat buy, they're going to leave me a good
Absolutely.
review. And also, I want to avoid the landmines. Why would I waste money advertising to someone who's going to not get much benefit, leave me a bad review, churn, and my whole brand is now no longer of interest to them.
That's
So it's
Well,
pretty darn cool.
that leads me to a follow-up. Actually, I thought of when I don't know if you can share this, but of the studies that you just talked about that you're doing, I'm curious as to what the indications are, the health areas,
sure.
because that kind of tracks with trends. I would hope.
Totally.
For the end consumer.
Totally. Now, obviously, everything I just talked about is also contextual to the health outcome of interest.
Yeah.
But of the 12 trials we're running, it's everything from libido to stress to pain or discomfort in the structure of function parlance to sleep, cognition, fatigue.
A lot of
and
mental wellness there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
and I'm probably missing a few as well. The libido studies are pretty exciting. And those are also we have clients who are doing gender-specific studies. So some are focused on male
That's
libido,
interesting, yeah.
some are focused on female libido, which is also obviously amongst women's health in general underserved and understudied.
I
It
agree.
is. Just a comment on that. I've been around this industry long enough to remember what company I worked for many years ago. I think it was back in the 90s. We came out, there was certainly sexual health products for men.
Mm.
We came out with, I think, the first one for women. And it didn't sell. Not because it didn't work. Women wouldn't try it. They wouldn't touch it.
Mm.
I don't know what it was, but it was like, oh, no, I can't.
Sure.
And that's changed. I mean, you have a different generation of women.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're much more open and interested in these kind of things.
Mhm.
And so now I think it makes a great deal of sense that there's research being done
Sure.
to examine this because they have a different mindset.
Mm.
I would
very
love
interesting.
I would love to see more research in this area, only because historically in our industry it's kind of an abused area, like sports products or weight loss, right?
Mm.
And there's not a lot of science there in a lot of these ingredients.
Right.
We need to see more of that in that area. I think it'd be really cool to see that.
And it's like, again, gender obviously being a key area we just talked about in terms of what predicts someone's ability to have an impact on these products. But another thing I also often think about is, could we understand dosing better? So
Yeah.
what's fascinating is, being able to add arms to a trial, try many different doses, and also try to start to map out. Some
We
of these
heard that
dose
already
response
today,
curves.
didn't we?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So going to this notion of some of these products, maybe the dosing wasn't correct, and that's why there
Right.
wasn't much science behind it. And so I think that's a really interesting opportunity for people to explore not the one dose to rule them all, but it's for whom
Right.
the right doses. And I've been going around talking to the ingredient suppliers, and most of them still say, no matter who they sell to, the brand,
Yeah.
they just give them the same fixed dose and for the same indication. But a couple are starting to say, no, we're starting to have some data. And if you tell us some specifics about your segment, if you're a brand buying from them, they will actually steer you towards a different dosage, even for the same health indication.
That's
Which is-
very really
Yeah.
interesting.
Getting
So-
more sophisticated. now.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. Cool.
cool.
Well, Jeff, awesome to have you here on the podcast.
Thank you so much for
And,
having me, guys.
Thank you so much, and
Of
we'll
course.
see you a little
See,
later
I'll
on.
sing you later tonight,
We're
guys.
going to be singing it up tonight. I'm just curious, what's going to be your go-to tonight? Your first song?
Well, so from all the talking the last few days,
Yeah.
I know.
my range is a lot narrowed. So
I hear you, my
yeah,
friend.
so I'm not going to rock anything that's falsetto, high range. I might go to
Yeah.
some easy country tunes and stuff that
There
can
you
actually,
go.
stay within more of
All
my
right.
baritone range or something.
I
So
love
Yeah.
it.
I love
Let's
it,
be
man.
some country songs.
That's cool.
That works.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, guys. Jeff's going to sign off here. Thanks, Jeff, for joining us.
Of course.
Thank
All right. We have a legend with us today. So
We do.
on the biotech. Tom Aarts, thanks for joining us today.
Sure. Good to be here.
I don't think there's anyone that doesn't know who you are, maybe, but for those that are new to the industry, I've actually talked to a lot of people, first timers here at SupplySide. Maybe you can give a brief intro about who you are and what you've been doing.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, you think you know everybody, but there's so many more people here. You realize there's a lot of new people that you don't know. So my background is 27 years ago decided that I wanted to plunge into the nutrition industry, and had some experience with nutrition myself as an athlete, but I realized I wanted to make a business out of it. So I launched a newsletter called Nutrition Business Journal based on advice from a professor at business school who said, if you want to become an instant expert in a new industry, write a newsletter. So I did that. and the rest is history. I got lucky. The newsletter became well known, and we became sort of the journal of record on the business side of the industry and sort of the Wall Street Journal of the space. And that got me an opportunity to see all the trains go by and talk to all the CEOs and learn about the industry from the back to the front to the top. And I've been blessed to have many experiences working with some of the leaders in the sector. And then from the journal, we launched a summit called the MBJ Summit, which is a CEO event because the journal went to CEOs, so it was sort of natural to have an in-person event. And then we also did a Nutrition Capital Network event, which was a kind of a Shark Tank event.
Yeah.
So and then, again, same kind of like reason for starting it was we knew all the investors, we knew all the young new startup entrepreneurs, and we got in the middle of that. So my career is like basically being in the middle of all the leaders and trains that go by in this sector. So,
That's awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Coming from the man who kind of basically started SupplySide, I'm very interested to hear about your perspective on what you've seen this year at SupplySide that you thought was particularly cool, really
Sure.
interesting to you.
Sure. Well, it's an interesting question because we actually do that, for some of our clients, and I also do it because that's my, curiosity about the space. And everybody's like, what's new, what's cool, what's interesting? So I got a text from a friend of mine who's like meeting with his boss saying, I need to know the top 3 trends that are happening here, And so I wrote back kind of a cheeky text. I said, GLP-1, number 1, GLP-1, number 2, GLP-1, number 3. And but then I was that was not really the full answer because, I don't necessarily believe that one thing is going to, drive the whole industry. But certainly, what happened with Ozempic is sort of changing everything, food industry. There's bankers that are investigating how GLP-1 is going to change, snack industry, the food industry,
Right.
the health club industry. Are people going to work out more or less? So it's a what I call a once in a lifetime sort of mega, trend and driver of the industry. So I'm not saying that's the coolest thing, but that's sort of obviously the pervading thing that's happening around it. But what I think is more interesting is why it's kind of putting attention on why people are overweight. And I think
That
now
needs to happen.
yes,
for
now
sure.
we've got more technologies and more nutritional solutions around, okay, is GLP-1 going to be one for all for one, or are there solutions around GLP-1? Are there
Yeah.
other solutions, other natural Zempex? Are there ingredients that can work on the GLP-1
Right.
antagonist? And and I'm not a scientist, but I can see lots of different products, some good, some bad, some ugly around that.
Right. Cool.
Very good.
And that's something I wrote an article for a magazine probably in 2014, I think. No, 2012 about obesity and showing from the 10 years previous to that. So that only 3 states in the U.S. had obese population sign, and now every state is red. I was talking to an MD about this, and it's nobody even looks at that statistic
Yeah.
anymore because it's not relevant because it's the whole country.
Right.
So from a standpoint, and we've never turned the tide on obesity. There's been so much discussion about that. There's
Right.
still a lack of education on that. So I don't know that GLP-1 is going to be the panacea for all this or something, but for sure we can make our contribution, I think, in our industry on that.
Yeah, and I think I've seen those graphs, and it's generated by the government. You can see the states, and I've been putting those up when I present, and we're saying it's getting worse and worse and worse. However,
Yeah.
Again, we don't want to make this all about GLP-1, but
No.
in the last year, the curve on the obesity rates has started to cap out on the slope.
Yeah,
So we look for that.
That's good.
Is the growth rate slowing? And we're seeing that for the very first time. So
Oh, that is good news.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
the estimate's 30 million Americans are going to be on some kind of GLP-1 product.
Yeah.
And that's going to impact a lot of other things. We don't know the full side effects. William, better than I do, there's like going to be side effects we don't know about and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So that's interesting. I think other things that are cool here and are some of the stuff that I think is really interesting is some of the bioavailability technology, some of the delivery systems I looked at. I saw a company from China that I know pretty well, and they've got a sort of a micro beadlet approach to nutrition. It's TSI is the company, and they're like putting beadlets, and delivering pretty good efficacious doses in beadlets. I just passed a booth that I saw years ago called Concordix, and they've got a kind of a gel that's like not a gummy. It's kind of like looks like a little bit like a gummy, but the delivery, impact on that product is huge. They got 400 milligrams of DHA in a product that doesn't have sugar. It's the equivalent of like 18 gummies from Ollie or one of these other companies.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pick on any of the gummy companies, but when I feed my kid gummies, I'm thinking, how much sugar are you getting? How much is it destroying?
That's the big
your teeth?
question.
So this is an interesting, again, a technology that has the payload, which is the problem. And so I see lots of these delivery technologies. We'll see which ones they go.
Yeah, cool. All right, last question we have for you. I know it's coming up at the end of the show.
Yeah.
So for you, what's the coolest thing you got going on, Tom? What's the next greatest thing? You've done so many things. Tell us.
Well, I don't know if I want to give that away.
No, you don't want to give it away, but
generally, well, I mean, I like to look for the next thing. Where's the puck going? And I get involved in helping companies figure that out, but also for myself and my own health. That's kind of where that's why I love this industry, because I want to stop aging, and there's this term about longevity escape velocity. In 2030, they predict that if you are healthy, you might be able to go biologically backwards, but that's a whole nother thought.
But
that drives me into looking what's the latest and greatest in longevity. What's the latest and greatest? I take a lot of supplements, but what are the ones that are going to move the needle? So for me, lately, I've been really interested in peptides.
Sure.
It's a topic. Well, actually, Ozempic's a peptide, so we're still back to Ozempic. Right. But I didn't realize. I'm not as smart as you guys, but insulin is a peptide. So that was the very first peptide.
The first one brought to the market.
So I could go on and on, but now for some reason, even though they're strings of amino acids, we're seeing therapeutic peptides come back. I'm not talking about collagen peptides or peptides in skincare products. There's a lot of peptides because they're just whatever. Yeah. But we are seeing now, these cell signaling peptides that are working, very well on humans, and they're cell signaling, and they're usually given by injection. But again, remember, back to my delivery, we're now finding that companies can, deliver some of these orally. They're not necessarily technically supplements, so that's a problem. There's a regulatory challenge. Maybe FDA hasn't figured it out yet, but we're seeing lots of therapeutic peptides like BPC-157. They all have strange names. AOD, CJC-1295, PT-141. They all are really powerful, and they work as well as some of the even drugs are out there. So if they're this middle ground of is it a nutraceutical, is it a drug, but it works like a drug, those are the things I'm really interested in. Now, they're dangerous, but not dangerous to take, but from a regulatory standpoint.
Yeah,
that's what I think I'm very interested in working on some cool shit in that area.
Awesome,
man.
Thank you.
How's that?
That's awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us today.
Is that what you wanted?
Yep, that's what we wanted. All right.
Where does this go?
All right, our next guest is Pelin Thorogood. She is the co-founder at Radical, the clinical research organization, and we're very happy to have her here today. So just tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me here, first of all. And in terms of my background, education-wise, it was data science and information engineering. And my career has been really in tech focusing on how to leverage data to make the best business decisions and health decisions. So it's all about data-driven decision making my entire career, including radical science, of course.
Very good. Very good. So questions?
Yes, question. So Pelin, what was your? I know you guys have been coming here. This is your third year
It's our third year.
for
Yep.
SupplySide. I remember
Yes.
the first year you guys came here. So what do you think this time is different, or something really cool you've seen? Could be a trend, could be technology, could be something.
Could be a product, whatever you like.
Sure. The one thing that has been very exciting for me, again, I'm the data girl, so I've been really excited by seeing how much more interest there is in clinical evidence, and not just for ingredients, but for finished products.
Yeah.
So as a consumer advocate, just naturally makes me happy that we're not just focused on ingredients, which is a great place to start. But I really do believe between form factor, dosage, combination of ingredients, any interactions, focus should be on finished products. And I've seen a significant shift towards that, which makes me happy.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, I've seen a lot of that too. I've seen a lot more companies doing studies on their finished product,
Exactly.
which is wonderful. And companies that have raw materials doing studies too. But if you can do both, then you got the best of all possible worlds.
That's
Well,
exactly what I think as well.
And I'm glad to see finally somebody come in the industry that's doing that, because as you know, I was doing this back in 2012 for finished product.
You told me that. That's amazing. You
I'm sorry.
definitely had the foresight.
But I was too early. So you guys are riding the wave, and there's some other people I've seen come in the industry this latest thing, which is cool, in your space, in this particular sector. So I'm excited to see how we go with that, and it goes hand in hand with all the science we've seen in terms of new ingredients, new technologies, and stuff like
Indeed.
that. Yeah.
So this leads me to my next question, which is radical. From your perspective, what's one of the really cool things that's going on there right now?
So, as you guys know, we've really been supercharging how clinical trials are done with our proof as a service technology that is enabling unprecedented speed, affordability, and scale. And it's the scale part I'm going to really focus on. Our studies are massive in scale, which is great because they're powered for that. But more importantly, when you have large and diverse populations, you don't just look at your studies to see is the active product going to be placebo. I mean, something you're absolutely looking for, and you want to see that, and you want to make sure these products are effective for the powered outcomes. But what's even better, I believe, is being able to dive in, do advanced biostatistics on these massive massive populations, leverage AI on them to understand how the products may actually affect different subpopulations differently. One size does not fit all. The three of us are not the same, and those changes are not even based on age or gender. It could be based on lifestyle. It could be based on a lot of other areas as well. So by collecting a lot of multidimensional data on our study participants and being able to run these models on them really gives us the ability to help our customers, whether ingredient suppliers or brands, so that they understand how their products work differently for subpopulations, informing both R&D but also target marketing.
Right.
That is very cool. I love that.
Thank
I love
you.
how you're able
Thank
to
you.
slice and dice and make it very specific. That's just awesome.
Cool. Awesome. Well,
I that's great. Thank you
That's
so
awesome.
much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely.
Thanks for coming on, and keep plugging away what you guys are doing.
Absolutely.
All
No
right.
question about it.
All right.
Thanks. So, our next guest is Michael Anthonavage. Now, I actually had he's with VitaQuest, a premium contract manufacturing facility, but I had him on my other podcast, and he was so brilliant, I just said, oh, we got him on this one. You know?
You didn't know you were brilliant, Michael.
No, but I did get some business from that, so thank you.
So, and listen,
That's always good.
Why don't you just give us just a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm relatively new to the supplement industry because I came from the beauty side for 30 years. I was a skin biologist for major multinational brands. Ran some vendor companies, R&D projects for a while. So went into the clinical testing side of the world, and then decided to try my hand at contract manufacturing and supplements.
Yeah.
So I have a background in herbal medicine. I'm a cell biologist, so I teach, bring it all together. Right? I help our customers ideate. So as a VP
You
innovation,
sure do.
right? It's not about your finished product; it's about getting your vision
Yeah.
turned into reality.
And a very smart guy. I remember talking to him in preparation for the podcast, and we were talking about skin health, and he mentioned something that, like, I thought I was the only one that ever was aware of this, and I was like so excited because he knew about this stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
that's
a lot of
awesome.
opportunity there.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. So what is the supply side? You've been here coming a long time.
Yeah, a couple
right?
years now. Yeah.
What's the we'd be interested to have your perspective. What was maybe the one thing that was the coolest thing, or it could be a trend or a thing or whatever that you've seen this week?
Listen, I think the my perspective of this show, the way I walk the floor is I look at it. We're all here shooting for the same prize, and I'm very interested in watching how different vendors, different companies differentiate themselves in the same space.
Sure.
So as a CM, it's my job to make sure my toolbox is really versatile enough to handle any request that walks in the door.
Right.
So I don't really look to see what's new and hot in a particular category, because it doesn't have to be new or hot to be interesting. It has to satisfy a specific differentiation point, and that opens up the floor to be more interesting to me.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't necessarily, the latest, greatest clinical studies always attract me. The latest, greatest efforts in bioavailability and controlled release, always nice, right?
Yeah.
Because this is the next gen of the scientific understanding of the industry.
Yeah.
Right. How do we get more nutrient dense ingredients into the target area faster? Right, and more effectively. So there's a consumer perceivable benefit. My KPI for success is brand loyalty, return business, come back, see me again. Right. I'll sell you once, but if I sell you twice, I must have done something right. And that's how I look at these guys on the floor and these gals on the floor. Everybody's got their shtick down really well. It's refreshing to see it from a left brain perspective that they're leaning on their science more than their marketing.
I know. Yeah. Here.
No, and that's one reason we wanted to start this podcast, because there isn't really anything serving, and we want to go actually to end consumer mainstream eventually with this. But the reality is not just catering to our industry. That's certainly important, but I think the more and more that we can really elevate supplement knowledge and the science is really key. And I think we're in this really big trend. There's I've met so many first-time people this week. First time to supply side, young people, eager, you got new companies that got cool tech, cool ideas. So for me, that's exciting, because we're not done yet. So we're going to ride the wave for that, man.
And knowledge is power, right?
Yeah.
And as the maitre d' in front of the kitchen, so to speak, when you come into VitaQuest and you know what you want, it's great. I could sit at your table and the chef already knows how to prepare it. But if you walk into my restaurant and you say, I'm hungry, what do you got?
What do you got?
Then that's what I sit down and I go over the wine list, and I go over what the fresh catch of the day is, right?
Right.
So speaking of VitaQuest, what would you say is sort of one of the coolest things going on right now at VitaQuest?
Yeah, so much exciting stuff is happening at VitaQuest. We're expanding. Our business is growing. We're re-outfitting our quality department to expand it, and quality is the hallmark of our business. We pride ourselves heavily. The Q in VitaQuest is a capital red Q for a reason. It's to draw your eye to that very added value benefit. We're taking a very proactive approach in informing our customers about how diverse our toolbox is, because we have good standing with our vendors. We get first look at some of their clinical work before it's even published, right? We can't talk about it, but at least we're getting our gears in sync. So when the next greatest thing in women's health comes out, or there's a way to link gut health to vaginal health, or these menopausal symptoms, or this bone and joint symptoms, or tying in gut, brain, skin axis, right? So get your beauty sleep, get your gut in line, reduce your anxiety, look better, right? That feedback system where everybody starts saying, hey, Gene, you look fantastic. What have you been doing, right?
Yeah.
Nothing's better than that.
That's right.
To get rid of the wrinkles and put a smile on your face, change your pallor and your texture. So
awesome.
it all works.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
I appreciate your guys' dedication to the industry and doing that kind of thing. And,
Yeah.
and it's awesome that I actually didn't realize. I know the Q's bigger, but I didn't actually.
It's not bigger, it's just red.
It's
Yeah.
just red.
Yeah.
Well, that stands out in there.
And
So,
they're one of the things I always like is that they've been around like as long as I have. I mean, they've been like 45 years.
Wow.
Yeah, 47, I think.
47, longer than I have.
47 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Michael, it's been awesome to have you on the show.
Thanks
so
for the
appreciate
opportunity.
it.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Mike. Thanks for
Good
joining
luck,
us
gentlemen.
again.
All
Looking
right.
forward to hearing the rest of it.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
We have as our next guest the famous Danielle Lin, a
Yes.
lady that I have known for, I wanted to say years, but decades would be a more correct statement.
Yeah.
She is, you've known her a long time too, right, Bill?
Yeah. In fact, we were trying to figure out what year it was we actually met, and we've both been on your radio show, as you know, and she's a legend.
And she has her Danielle Lin radio show, and which she's had
Yeah.
for decades, and it's all over the place. And now she's got this fantastic podcast, and there's so much going on. But Danielle, just thanks for being here, but also just tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, and that's good because we have a lot of new people coming in. Love to know who you are, I think.
Yeah, a
So,
lot of people.
Yeah.
Well, it has been decades, 42 years, as crazy
Wow.
as that sounds. I went on the air in 1982, and we were the first broadcaster to bring the industry to the people. So we went from a triangle, which was get an ingredient, get a brand, do some science, go to the trade show, and that's where it left off. And then what we discovered is the whole consumer was missing.
Right.
So we tied together the industry for B2B and B2C. And that became the early platform. And we started the stage inside here. And we started the stage at Expo. And, we were in the legacy trail, the beginning of the industry when it started. And when the people decided that we were committed to changing the world. And, in that, I started over in the food side. So Horizon and Doug Green, and I had a veggie pie, and we were launching tofu. And so my background,
Launching tofu, I love
launched
it.
tofu. I was the tofu queen.
The tofu queen.
Yeah, the tofu queen. There was actually a tofu named after me, Soy Lin. So
Oh, really?
yeah, it was hysterical. I'm like, okay, I'm not sure that's a good word name, but it was Chinese. And then along the way, I just kept finding the pockets that were missing, conversations that were missing. B2B to B2C, and then B2B, and then C to C. It was like there were all these places where there was a lack and a hole. And in those days, when I first started, there were very few, maybe two, branded raw materials. So I came on the show floor from Expo to the ingredient side and said, this is going international. It wasn't international yet. There was a few companies coming in from China. But you're going to have Mexico, you're going to have India, you're going to have China, you're going to have all these countries from everywhere in the world. And there's no science here. There's only a couple companies that did science, and there were very few branded. So there was no way to protect the industry. It was on its way to a commodity industry.
Yeah.
And so I started going booth to booth and saying, you need to brand. They were like, why should we spend on branding? I said, it's not about the branding. It's about the edification and the efficacies held by a name that people will begin to recognize.
Trust and
Yeah,
recognize.
and trust.
Right.
So Pycnogenol was really one of the first that spent on radio.
Oh, yeah, they sure did.
Yeah.
And they
I remember
started
that.
with us, and we've been with them for over 25 years. And we taught people how to spell Pycnogenol. And we taught people to turn the bottle around and look for a branded raw material because it meant something. It wasn't just another turmeric. Why did you get a different one? Why did Indina, put liposomal, and phyto technologies with this? These were the things that started to craft what the future of what the industry would look like with differentiation. Right? Phytosomes come in, and now you can absorb something. Nobody even understood absorption. Nobody knew about blood-brain barriers. There was no science. So we've helped to create one of the largest podcast libraries. Now it's 40 consistent plus years. That is, I think the trend on the floor has been miraculously changing into, we know and expect science now. We know and expect clinicals. We know that sustainability is important. You've got to live by certain parameters now, or people aren't going to buy, especially the next generation.
Right.
So now that you have all this background and experience, and year after year after year coming to SupplySide, I'm particularly interested to hear your perspective on this year when you've been walking the floor, you've been looking at things. What is interesting and cool to you that you've seen?
Well, I think the coolest thing and the most important thing is the relationships have remained the same. This is very important in an industry. It's not about what comes and goes or some trend. It's about the relationship of people in an industry with have a purpose and meaning.
Right.
And that meaning is stronger now. And the legacy people, people say, oh, you're old, or you've been around so long, or maybe we only need new. No, I mean, the people that are coming in now, the relationships that are on that floor that are holding steady are interesting to me, because that means the devotion is not a trend.
I love that you said that.
That is awesome.
That's such a cool perspective. And this is like, how many times have you come to these shows and impromptu things, someone walks up to you that you're not expecting, especially thousands of people, and it's something you're super interested in. It's perfect timing, right?
Yeah.
It's a really unique, I would say, on a spiritual, energetic level, quite unique, I think, in that sense. I think it's
year after year, I know you experience this. I sure do when I'm here, for people like us who've been around for so long.
Right.
Yeah.
That you walk, it's hard to walk 10 feet down the aisle without seeing somebody you know.
Yeah, there you
stop,
go. You love
shake
it.
hands, hug, and some of these people you're very close with.
Yeah.
And you have those relationships, and it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
It makes it a special, event to be able to have that. So.
Yeah, I was talking with Greg Riss today from Indina, one of the premier companies in the world. I mean, there's just companies that...
You saw Greg today?
I saw Greg. I just left.
I always seem to miss him.
No, and then I just came from Port Victor and their team, and I said to them, to Greg especially, I said, you've got Brandon now, and you have your son Ty in the industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of generational legacy going on here.
Good mentors produce good results, and they have done it. And the next generation that's coming are growing. They don't have the backbone. They don't have the 40 years, but the backbone of the passion, and they're learning. And as long as we keep teaching, the industry can thrive, because we have to have people, not jobs. We have to have people that come in and understand this is world changing. We changed the world first with agriculture and food. Now we're changing it from the perception of science and spirituality. And then consciousness will come into the understanding that without pure food and sustainability, we have nothing. And this is the industry that holds ingredients. That is the most important thing we can do for the planet. It controls all movement in the world, ingredients. Every war, any contribution, excuse me. And this is the industry that does it. And it's global. So, people like you that carry it on and are able to speak the language. That's really important.
And people like you.
Yeah.
People like you.
Speaking of people like you, so yeah.
I'm dying to know what's next in the world of Danielle Lin and what's coming. And
yeah, it's a really interesting.
Because we're obviously all not done with this industry, so.
No.
Yeah, and yet, there's a million. The podcasts will be ubiquitous.
Yeah.
Radio shows, not so. You can be a podcaster, but you probably won't be a broadcaster. It's that era which I intend to grow more, because I'm devoted to the mass market. I'm not quick. I'm devoted to a conversation. So we intend to expand that network. We'd like to do about 200 stations and stay in the mass market. But we're turning, because we own one of the largest podcast libraries, it is now a central theme of the evolution of where we're heading over 40 years of where we came from in tech. So we're launching a tech company, and it'll be based on the database that we now own.
Awesome. Which is pretty darn extensive.
Yeah, it's 42 years of consistent everybody
awesome.
And anybody that was famous, anybody that became famous, anybody that launched an ingredient. It's we open these boxes.
You could write a book around
the stories you could tell.
The stories, and also I open the boxes because our website at DanielleLin.com houses back to 2011.
Yeah.
But every other box in the room goes back to 1982, and you open it and it's like gold, and you're like, oh my gosh, I remember we talked about Ben and Jerry's when they first launched, and then how about corn chips, how about tea tree oil,
wow.
It was just all the every single conversation at the beginning is in there. So
Cool.
when it becomes data, it becomes science, and it becomes an ability to study the science of human life. So that's where we're heading.
Awesome.
That's
Love to
awesome.
do it.
Yeah.
Danielle,
my
awesome
God.
to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
You know,
much.
I like normally shake hands. It's so hard to just shake your hand. You want to give me a hug.
I know. Love you both.
Yeah.
Love you.
All right.
So good to see you.
Thank you.
Debate.
Thank you.
Okay,
All right.
we'll see you in the next round.